Quantum Teens Argo number 1. Written by Magdalene Visaggio, art by Eric Donovan, with colors by Claudia Aguirre. In the relatively near future, we follow two high schoolers on their path for super science glory to build a time machine. It's a fairly straightforward premise, which isn't a bad thing, because we're being introduced into the setting and to the characters quite well, really. And the art is good in that indie loose way that I love ever so much. But, of course, there is a lot of movement in this issue to set up the world and to move the story forward, which I don't think is necessarily bad, but on a critical level it can feel rushed and padded. Yes, I'm going to do some spoiling, so before I get into this, yes, this book is worth a read at least. Okay? Okay, so with that spoiler warning out of the way, the story starts off with Nat and Sumesh, the two high school leads, breaking into an old laboratory and fighting robots to get some swag to help their science. Then they go out only to be met with another gang going, "You screwed us, we want compensation," while the security robots they were fighting are still closing in. Then it just slams cut to the next morning where Nat's getting ready for school, and we find out that she's actually post-transition, but enough about that as she skateboards to school. Over with Sumesh, we learn that he's been building a thing, while getting dialogue to show that he's not my real dad towards his, I think, stepdad, but then he goes to school. In school, we learn that Sumesh and Nat are dating, but mostly the scene solely exists for a, hey, I got a tachyon thing so we can make a thing, but we need help because I don't know how to do tachyon things. So they then go to the big super science gang to go, we need help, but they won't help, but an ex-member of that gang is there to say, yeah, I'll help, and they build it and turn it on, and that's the end of the issue. There's about 6 scenes in this whole thing, and I want to take them scene by scene because I am really split on this book. The robot starter was just an action beat, which while it does show that Nat is the brash one and Sumesh is the science one, it really could have been cut out totally or played completely different to make them actually act surprised and maybe have them not literally fighting robots. Maybe show Nat being brash to distract so Sumesh can get off with the loot. It just felt weird with how the rest of the book plays. It's not out of character, mind you, just an awkward start that maybe is holdover from Visaggio's work on Kim and Kim. But then, seeing them both before school is good, though I feel the scene with Nat is solely there to bring up that she's trans, but again, not a bad scene in a vacuum. Same with Sumesh's scene for him being all, he's not my dad while working on the machine. Actually, and you can say this is solely on me, I realize I hate teen characters that are written like teens. Nat acts like a standard teen with the whole you never understood me thing, and scoffing at the whole parental concern since she stays out all night. Yes, you can say that it's because I'm a parent now that I understand the parent side of things, but again, this scene does work by itself, while Sumesh's adds the aha moment on finding the thing to make a time machine, which could have probably worked to go, maybe that's why they started escalating into break-ins. Then we actually get the school scene, which honestly really only seems to showcase standard high schoolers being standard high schoolers. By the way, props on the Little Shop of Horrors reference for this play the school's putting on. Yes, this whole scene mainly exists so, they can cut school so they can go to the super cool science gang after Sumesh goes, see, it could work, but we need someone who knows what they're doing. It's actually a good place to characterize, but really it only expands on what we've seen before, save for showing that Nat and Sumesh are actually a couple. And finally, the last 2 scenes are with the super cool science gang saying they can't help, and the ex-member turning around literally like off-panel going, but I can help. Frankly, this is the best part of both fleshing out the world, the works they're doing, and even cementing the characters, plus a solid hook for the next issue. The reason I went scene by scene is because I really can't decide whether or not this book is a fun techno-punk romp, or just a mediocre look with a bitchy young hip punk and her sort of doormat boyfriend. On one hand, I dig the concept of the universe, with gangs almost being just too edgy for you science clubs. But on the other hand, Nat as a character gets grating with her, I'm such a cool punk, right? Attitude. But then on the third hand is that, yeah, this is the first issue setting up these characters and the generals for the world to get us to the quantum teens part of this whole thing, so some leeway is acceptable. I'm going to assume that Visaggio did the thing that most comic writers, including myself, do with going, and this is where I want this issue to end, with the whole, and the monkey flips the switch moment, and then build from that. Regardless of the writing, the art is really good in that rough indie style I do praise. It gives a universal grit that comes with the techno-punk feel, and it being complemented by the loose coloring just makes it work really, really well for the story being told. So like I said before I went into that giant ramble, my verdict is a solid read it. Read it means obviously that it's worth a read, especially with a book like this where I can't state that it's totally a buy now, because while I'm intrigued and definitely going to check out the next issue, I really do have mixed feelings about this issue as a whole. But that's all for this episode of First Issues Now. If you think I'm totally wrong and this is the best book ever, or if you think that this is totally skippable, let me know in the comments below. Check out my other channels, ComicSins, where I tally the sins and wins of a random comic, and A Comic a Day, where we're wrapping up Dark Towers month. Like the Archivist on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and pledge to our Patreons for some exclusive stuff. And as always, stay golden, Inklings.